All right, here we go. I have been rambling a little bit the last few videos, so I'm going to try to get through a few more of these in this one. Hi, I just wanted to tell you I love your videos. Even if Beth never comes back, you've been such a positive part of my day. Aw. There have been times when all I had to look forward to in the week were your weekly Daryl Dixon episode reviews because I adore hearing about Beth and her symbolism. Oh, well, thank you. I'm so glad. That's very sweet. And I hope that things get better for you so that that's not all you have to look forward to. But I'm glad that you do still. And I will be doing more of them for Fear the Walking Dead. I will say that Fear the Walking Dead is never as good as the flagship show because, well, Daryl's not in it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have its moments. There was an episode a couple of seasons ago, I think it was season 6, and I'm going to blank on the title. Something with dream in the title. I don't think it was Dream a Little Dream of Me. I think maybe it was In Dreams. I think that was it. And that episode knocked my socks off. I mean, it was fabulous. It was really tragic. Don't get me wrong. It was not a happy episode, but I'm just saying Fear does have its moments too that can be really, really good. And we do see a lot of the same symbolism there. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with Troy's return. So yeah, I will continue to do the weekly discussions of those episodes. If you're going to be watching Fear, you can tune in for that. So thank you so much. That really made my day. So thank you for telling me that. All right, next one. Curious if you saw Melissa McBride's interview for season 2 where she talks about Carol's headspace and Daryl. Melissa said that Carol needed her friend and she needed to know that he was okay, and she's holding something back. She looks away coyly as she says it. I feel like all the actors ship bait, LMAO. Norman has played many angles for the ships, including him and Glenn, haha. But then Norman has also talked about Carol in such a platonic way, I truly don't think he wants Carol to happen. No, at this point, I don't think he does either. The thing to remember about Norman is that he has always said that he's pretty much down for anything. And by that, I just mean he trusts the storytellers. He trusts the writers to tell a great story, so he's down for whatever they want to do. I remember he said that back when it came out that basically before season 3, they were not sure exactly what they were going to be doing with Daryl's love life, and they actually considered making him a gay character. Now, they didn't go that way with him. They decided to make him straight. But Norman said that back then. People were going, well, what would you have done, if he had been gay? And Norman was like, you know what? I trust the writers, and whatever they wanted me to do, however they wanted to shape the character, I was down for that. So he really didn't mind. And my point is that once upon a time, if they had decided to go the romance route with Daryl and Carol, I think Norman would have been fine with that. But they didn't do that. And that's kind of the point. And I remember an interview that he gave a long time ago about, and I don't remember even exactly what was said, but it was basically that what I took away from it was that even though he was down for anything, and I'm sure they, told him what was going on. It was like, okay, we're going to do this Beth arc thing, and she's going to be the love interest, yada, yada. And he was fine with that because, like he said, he would be fine with anything. But he also didn't have really strong feelings about it one way or the other. He was just like, okay, cool, But then when he was filming still with Emily, it was like he started to kind of see the magic of Bethel, and he became very, very converted to it. So I just remember him talking about how at first it was just like another arc for him, and then as they filmed it, he really started to like the dynamic. And, when Daryl smiles at Beth on the porch, that really is genuinely Norman enjoying this arc and really, really liking it. So, again, I don't think he would have been completely opposed to Daryl and Carol, especially back in season 2 and 3 when, they were still trying to figure things out. But now, at this late juncture, I mean, he's known about Beth for a long time at this point. And yeah, he definitely doesn't want Carol to happen because they've gone completely in different directions with it. It would be weird at this point. And he's even said that. He said, I mean, without saying it in a way that's going to offend people and all of that, he said, that most people, when there's a romantic attraction, they actually get together pretty quickly. And then after that, figure out if it's going to be long-term or not. And if it's not, then the relationship just doesn't last. And basically, he said that at this point, him and Carol are in the friend zone. It's been way too long. And if it was going to happen, it would have happened a long time ago. So yeah, he's kind of with us that if it happened now, it would be weird. So I totally agree. But I did want to touch on as well that I think I watched this interview, but I kind of just glazed over it. I didn't watch it in great detail or analyze it in great detail, but it's interesting that she says that Carol is holding something back and looks away coyly. I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily supposed to be a ship bait. I think that's her hinting that Carol has secrets, and it probably has to do with whatever or whoever came back that she said on the radio. And this is what I mean. They're probably not going to tell us right away. Like, if Carol shows up, the first thing everyone's going to want to know is, what were you talking about? Who or what came back? They're not going to tell us for a while. You know, she's going to not tell Daryl. And maybe it goes back to what I was talking about yesterday with that other ask about, the Nani sent in that Carol was there to help Daryl let go of things and be more positive. And maybe it's because she needs to make sure that he's in a good headspace before she tells him whatever it was, whoever or whatever came back, because she knows it's going to impact him emotionally. So it'll just be really interesting. I'm really excited for this storyline and where they go with it, but it doesn't bother me that, Melissa's like being coy and saying that Carol has a secret. I really don't think that has to do with shipping at all. I think it has to do with the plot of the story and whatever she said on the radio that got cut off. So I'm actually really excited for that. Okay. Thank you for the ask, though. Next one. If TD's theory of Morgan running into Beth before meeting Daryl and Aaron and heading to Alexandria turns out to be true, why didn't he say anything to Team Family about her? I mean, you could think that this was unrealistic or not, but most of them really don't talk about the things they've been through. I mean, every once in a while we'll be told on camera that somebody did tell someone else a story. Like, a good example is Henry telling Daryl that Carol told him and Ezekiel why she used to keep her hair short, and it was because her husband would grab her by the hair and abuse her. And so she kept it short to protect herself. But once she was married to Ezekiel and she felt safe, she didn't have to do that anymore. So we're getting an example of clearly Carol has told Ezekiel things that are personal about her past and the things she's been through. And that's only normal because she was married to him, and married people and lovers do share that kind of history with each other, usually. And it's interesting that she never told Daryl that. So for all those thinking that these two are soulmates, yes, there's things she has not told Daryl that she did tell Ezekiel. So that's super important. But back to my point. If we don't specifically hear that someone has told their story, we kind of need to assume that they haven't. And I think the reason for that, the logic for it in the show, is that they've all been through a lot of crap. They've been through really, really traumatic events and experiences. And for the most part, they just want to move on from them and maybe be more positive and focus on the here and now and not rehash old traumas and old negative things. Okay, so I suppose it might depend on what happened. Okay, if Morgan was the one who found her, we don't know that yet. But if he did, then it's also going to depend on what was going on. Maybe there were other traumatic things happening for him that Beth just so happened to be a part of, and he doesn't want to relive them. The other thing to remember is that Morgan never met Beth, and I don't think her name was ever mentioned to him. Why would Rick or Michonne mention her in Clear? Like, there was no reason to. So if he found her, he has no reason to believe at all that she's part of this group. He just thinks she's a stranger, and maybe he took her somewhere where she could get medical attention, and that was it. I mean, it seems maybe overly simplistic, but he didn't necessarily have any reason to mention her. And so I can see a conversation going on once they all come together and do figure things out, and him going, oh, you know her? Because I met her like years ago. You know what I mean? And being really shocked that they actually all know the same person. So if the theory ends up panning out, I think it would be something like that. And, again, because we don't know what happened during the missing 17 days, there could be a whole lot more to it that we don't have any inkling of because they haven't hinted at that stuff. But we'll just have to wait and see. But it's a good question. Just wondering, because I've seen people say this on social media, and you seem to know a lot about what goes on behind the scenes, but did the writers ever intend for Daryl and Connie to be together? You seem pretty sure that Donnie was never intended to be a romantic relationship, and I'm curious why you think that. I skipped seasons 9, 10, and 11, so I never saw any of their scenes together, but I do know that to this day, carolers complain about it. They said he did a lot of staring at her. Donnie is obviously not happening now, but it does make me wonder about how the writers view Daryl's love life, because in my mind, he belongs with Beth, no questions asked. Well, we can agree on that. So, I mean, obviously, because I don't work for the show and I don't know exactly all the details of how storylines are hashed out and everything, I can't say for sure. But my personal belief is that no, they were never going to put Daryl and Connie together romantically. I think people get their lines crossed a lot, and they hear one thing and draw a lot of conclusions from it that are not correct conclusions. The reason that I don't think that they were ever meant to be together is because, well, number one, because I think the plan since season 4 has always been to get him together with Beth. And I think that they were never going to give him a lot of relationships. They did the Leah thing, but there's no reason to do that over and over and over again. And Connie is not Leah. She's actually a really decent person. So if they were to get together and then break up, it would be, I don't know, it would be complicated and not, I don't want to say icky, but it wouldn't be smooth. There would be lingering feelings, and they're actually really good friends, and so there might be some hurt there, and they're not going to want to take something like that on with Daryl. I think what a lot of people, so they say he stares at her a lot. That's probably true, but he stares at anybody he's talking to a lot. I just think it's funny that they say that because it's Daryl, and because he's, the badass and the sex symbol on the show, anybody he looks at, people immediately freak out and say he's in love with this person. He looks at Rosita, he looks at Michonne, he looks at Carol. I mean, it doesn't, and there are shippers who ship every single one of those things, but it doesn't mean that he was ever going to be romantically with Connie any more than he was going to be romantically with any of them. Also keep in mind that Connie is deaf, and a lot of times he's trying to interpret her cues because there is a communication barrier there. And during the show, he starts learning sign language so that he can communicate with her. And that's another thing. People say, oh, well, obviously he cares about her and he's got romantic feelings for her because he's going out of his way to learn sign language. No, I mean, that's just Daryl. I mean, he's sweet and he's devoted to his friends, and he did start to care about her, just not in a romantic way, and he wanted to be able to communicate with her. He would have done the same thing for anybody he cared about. So they're taking things that they are genuinely sweet and good things, but they're making them more, or they're not even more than they are. They are a big deal, but they're making them romantic where they were never meant to be romantic. So one of my big reasons for believing that I pretty well know that they were never meant to be romantic is it's something that comes from outside the show. Not too long after Connie came on the scene, they had, I don't remember exactly when it was, but they had Lauren Ridloff on The Talking Dead. And she made a joke about a Daryl and Connie relationship and about like a shower scene. And it was like, yeah, she was totally using innuendo and being goofy and, catering to people who, want to have a Daryl sex scene and all of that. But here's the thing. I've heard different people make that joke a lot of times over the years. It was made talking about Daryl and Jesus. It's been made talking about Daryl and Carol before. And I feel like when they make that joke, it's because it's not going to happen. It is very literally a tease because they know that's not where they're going with it. I mean, obviously, the Carolers will tell you that Carol is still up in the air, but obviously he was never going to be with Jesus. And they made that exact same joke. So from a pattern standpoint, the fact that anything, and we've proven this lots of times, anything that they say on the show, the same as anything they say in interviews, has to be approved basically by Gimple or by the powers that be. So they allowed Lauren Ridloff to go on to The Talking Dead and make a joke about a Connie and Daryl shower scene. And I'm telling you, they would not have done that if it was actually going to happen. They never said that about Daryl and Beth, ever. They said other things that were interesting, but they never said that. They never made that exact joke. And when they make that joke, all I'm saying is that it's always about something that's never going to happen. So just because of the pattern of it. I mean, I when it was happening, I was like, I hope that's not where they're going. And I still 100% believed that, Beth was endgame. But I thought, maybe they'll put him in a relationship with her short term or something. And then when she did that, I was like, never mind. It's never going to happen. Like, they just basically told us that. And again, it's not proof, but it's part of a pattern that I've seen over and over again. The other thing I wanted to mention is that they did say, and I have seen this in articles, that they had a storyline for Connie that they never actually explored. And it was because she got her part in the Avengers universe, and then her schedule became very busy, and they just didn't have her for as much filming time as they wanted. But I think that a lot of the Donniers are taking that because that is something that was official that they said, and saying, so the Donniers take that and say, oh, it was a her and Daryl romance. No. The storyline that they were going to explore was Connie's baby. We do know from her talk with her sister that she lost a child, and it was probably a miscarriage. And it affected her a lot. That's why they did the whole, she went and picked up the baby that was the Whisperer baby in the field, because that was like a really gut reaction for her, because she actually did lose a child at one point. They were going to explore that a lot more. And I'm absolutely positive that Daryl would have been involved in that. She would have told him about it, or he would have had sympathy for her about it, but that doesn't mean it would have been a romantic thing. And they're taking that one piece of information and saying, oh, well, that proves that they were going to put them together, and then schedule-wise they couldn't, so they didn't. No, I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that they were ever meant to be romantic. I do think that Connie was always meant to be a proxy for Beth, and she very much was. And, if they were having him stare at her, if they were suggesting things, it's because it was a parallel to Beth, not because literally in the show he had feelings for Connie. So you've got to remember that. There's the symbolism, and then there's what's literally happening. And I understand why it's easy to get them crossed, because we're all watching the same show and the same thing is happening. But it's just the way that Gimple works. So, for example, Connie, he lost her in the cave and thought she was dead for a while, and she disappeared, and he looked for her and he couldn't find her. And then she came back, and there was this big reunion, and he was super happy, and there were apples involved, and all the Beth symbols, right? And so she was very much supposed to be a proxy for Beth, of him losing her and then finding her again, and it's a foreshadow of that happening with Beth. And that's why at times it might seem like they're trying to make it romantic, but it's just because they're paralleling her with Beth. But there was nothing that I ever saw, or that I ever read, or that I ever heard that said they were ever actually going to get him together with her. She was always meant to be a good friend and a platonic relationship. And I hope, honestly, that we see Lauren Ridloff again in the TWD universe, because I thought their dynamic was great, and I really liked her character. So, once again, I don't have proof, and I can't say it with any absolutism, but I'm like 99.999% sure that it was never meant to be that way. And I can see how people are misinterpreting things. And that just makes me even more sure that it is just their interpretation of it and not necessarily what the writers intended. So, hope that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to stop there for today, and I will be back to answer some more tomorrow. Bye!